Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today's topic is going to be what are some of the red flags that you should look for whenever you are considering a potential tenant. The first thing is going to be having unverifiable income. So whether they have to turn in tax returns, whether it's a prior W-2, whether it is a pay stub, you want to check all of these things. I typically make my potential tenants to show me verifiable income at least 3 times whatever the rent is. That keeps me from having to worry about future evictions on whether or not they can actually afford it or not. Poor credit history is going to be the next item. If you check credit, which I highly suggest that you do, I use apartments.com. I'll link it down in the description below. The cost for actually having the background check is actually given to the potential tenant. And so that potential tenant, I think they paid $25 or $30 in order for me to check their credit. But I do make sure that I check their credit because I think it's very important. You want to find out if they have any prior evictions, which is something that they also list on there. I also want to see what their credit history is. I'm not necessarily concerned about the credit score, but I want to see that they're actually trying to make payments on time, or if they have missed payments in the past, that they're at least trying to make those payments on a continual basis now. Prior evictions. I have a local Facebook group that I have joined, and what we do is we have a bad tenant list. And so on that bad tenant list, I will go down the list to make sure that I see any potential tenants. If I don't see their names, then of course that's a plus. I find that landlords, they tend to help each other. So if they've experienced a bad tenant, they don't want another landlord to experience the same thing. So you want to look at any bad landlord list that may actually exist in your area, or visit social media, or like I said, view that link down in my description. They have any prior evictions that may actually exist. Now with those prior evictions, that doesn't count any evictions that may have been put on the door by a sheriff department or police office. This is a formal eviction that had to actually go through the courts, where maybe some garnishments actually occurred, wage garnishments. Then that will show up on that background eviction list. Negative references from past landlords is going to be the next item. I always talk to previous landlords. I make certain that I have them to give me the name of the previous landlord, or whatever I find on my background checks of their previous addresses. I always call and speak with that landlord to see what they've experienced with the tenant, because 9 times out of 10, whatever they've experienced, then we're also going to experience as well. And so I want to avoid that. And so I always check to speak with all of the landlords that they may have had experience with. Frequent job or address changes is another thing that you need to make sure that you look out for. If you see a lot of address changes, then that should be a serious red flag. Actually, I maybe should have put this one as the first item, because that signals to me that they move around a lot. That means that I'm going to have to find a tenant pretty soon, and that's not something that I actually want to do, because it's hard enough, to me, in my opinion, to try and screen tenants, because I don't want to just put something out there, a property out there for rent, saying that's available for rent, and then turn around and just, okay, the first person that applies, I'm going to go ahead and put them in. No, you should screen your tenants. You should look at all of the different red flags. I'll tell you a story about one of the potential tenants that I had. She had the money, she was ready, she had income coming in, but she was so eager to get into this place. And I'm like, something is wrong. Why is she in such a hurry? I mean, she said, I got the money right now. I have the money right now. I can move in as soon as possible. So I said, well, give me just a second. Let me, I'll call you back tomorrow. Well, I can go ahead and give you the money today. I can go ahead and give you the money today. So it just kept bugging me that she was just so anxious and so ready to go ahead and get into this place. So the next day I noticed that on her pay stub that she had a different address than what she actually had on her driver's license. And so I inquired to her about that, and she said, well, yeah, I live at this place right now, and they are cutting off the water at my place. I said, well, it's an apartment complex? I said, well, that's not adding up to me, because are you paying water? And she was like, no, ma'am, the apartment complex pays water. for us. And so I'm like, that's another red flag. So if the apartment complex gets the water cut off, then all of the tenants are actually going to be complaining. That may even actually make the news, because if it's a large complex, which is where she actually lived, that may have even actually made the news, because a lot of tenants would have been complaining that it's constantly getting cut off. And she said, well, no, it's not the whole complex, it's just mine. So it just didn't make sense. It just didn't jive. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to any red flags that you feel are red flags, and more than likely they are going to be a red flag. So needless to say, she changed her mind. Before she had even said that she changed her mind, I already knew that she wasn't going to be a potential candidate, continue to be a potential candidate for me. Another thing is going to be the unwillingness to do a background check. Sometimes you may encounter somebody, like I said, she said, I have the money right now. I have the money right now. And of course, it may look enticing to go ahead and hurry up and get somebody in there so that you won't continue to be without rent. But screening is going to be very important. Red flags are going to be the most important thing. So if they don't want to do a background check, consider that as a red flag. Unstable or concerning behavior is the next item. If they have erratic behavior, if they're in a hurry to get into the place, if they are, antsy about something, or I even had one tenant to actually, her name was on the bad tenant list. She obviously was not aware that she was on the bad tenant list. And she went around calling all these different landlords, myself included, saying that she wanted to get in here. She even started giving fake names and all of this kind of stuff. She even had her mom to call. And that's another thing. They will have family members to actually call on their behalf. So if you have family members, I always say whomever is going to be living in the property, who's going to actually be on the lease or possibly paying rent, then they all need to do a background check. Whether it's a husband and wife, whether it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend, whether it's just roommates, whoever is going to be living there, then they actually have to do a background check as well. So hopefully this information was helpful to you. If so, then please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. What type of red flags have you experienced whenever you've been doing your potential rental properties?